For James Harden, it's his first time back in Philly since he forced the Sixers to trade him to the Clippers. The deal went down October 31st. Philly fans are not expected to be nice to him. No debates, no speculation, just the info you need. That's your KBLA Sports Minute. I'm Ray Richardson. More news, opinions, and conversation when we come forward on KBLA Talk 1580.
All I need is one mic.
Reparations Now has been a rallying cry in this country and around the world for decades. But the demand has taken on new urgency with growing momentum on the issue led by the state of California, which has completed an extensive study and put forth recommendations to enact reparations. California's reparations actions have huge nationwide implications. The California Task Force was the first of its kind in the nation, and the states of New York and Colorado recently voted to take on the issue. Dozens of cities from coast to coast, including San Francisco, Boston, Los Angeles, and Detroit, have started their own reparations commissions. One of the first known reparationists was Callie House, who toured the nation advocating for reparations in the 1890s. But never in this nation's history has the movement to heal the harms of enslavement, institutionalized racism, and the system of white supremacy seemed so strong. The topic remains untouchable for most elected officials, and the call for reparations has not yet garnered widespread public support. Polling shows that most Californians agree that black fellow citizens are still suffering from the damage done by slavery and Jim Crow, but they still do not support cash reparations. The California Legislative Black Caucus has introduced a package of proposals for bills that do not include 1 penny of cash compensation, restitution, or repair. Governor Newsom and other lawmakers have distanced themselves from the concept of cash payments. While Newsom is right, cash alone will not repair our collective harm, the state's goofy legislative package ignoring monetary payments is disingenuous. California lawmakers need to step up and put a reparations bill for cash payments on the table. The issue of how it is funded, the timeline, or whether it impacts our current budget challenges can be addressed. But we must strike while the iron is hot, or the window of opportunity will pass us by. If you agree that it's time for our lawmakers to add a bill enacting cash payments to their lineup, call them at 916-319-3868 and say, if it doesn't include cash, it ain't reparations. That's 916-319-3868. Tell him Callie House sent you. From Bruce's Beach to the California Task Force, the Golden State is a trailblazer when it comes to reparations. The world is watching. We must rise to the historical moment and set a precedent for cash payments along with legislative remedies and policies addressing the systemic badges of slavery and Jim Crow. We must insist on measures significant enough to help close the racial wealth gap. California must stand for cash, and the time for reparations is now. For KBLA Talk 1580, I'm Dominique DePrima. We welcome your comments.
Live from historic Leimert Park in Los Angeles, California, I'm Tavis Smiley, and I'm so glad to see you and me back in stride again. Before we get started with today's show, let me invite you to follow me on Facebook and Instagram at The Real Tavis Smiley, and get updates on X, that's formerly Twitter, at Tavis Smiley. By the way, should you miss any part of today's program or want to catch up on previous shows, you can always visit TheTavisSmileyShow.com. That's TheTavisSmileyShow.com, or wherever you get your podcast, and listen to the Tavis Smiley podcast version of this live program at your leisure. Another great show on tap for you today in our second hour.
Freaknik was much bigger than just a party. It was fashion, it was culture, it was food, it was music.
And it was just black everywhere.
Black love, black excellence, black enterprise.
Freaknik was the greatest black gathering in America.
They didn't know to bring order to it because it was kids. Any revolution ever in the history of the world, when it's youth, they're not even speaking the same language, so how can you understand the value?
This is when we begin to see this is not going to last forever.
Freaknik. Director P. Frank Williams and executive producer Luther, Uncle Luke Campbell, take us inside the new Hulu documentary Freaknik, The Wildest Party Never Told. Been a long time since I talked to Uncle Luke. I look forward to our dialogue with him and the director, P. Frank Williams, about this new Freaknik documentary in our second hour. In our third hour,
I know my parents loved me. Stand behind me, come what may. I know now that I'm ready, yeah. For I finally heard him say, it's a different world, ooh, than where you come from.
A Different World stars Daryl Bell and Cree Summer stopped by the studio to talk about their reunion tour to benefit HBCUs. What a classic show with, 3 different theme songs? And everybody had their favorite, but you know mine. I just played my favorite. The Queen killed it. It's hard to, again, there were 3 great theme songs, but hard not to vote for the one that the Queen did. And so we'll talk about A Different World all these years later with 2 of the stars, Daryl Bell and Cree Summer, again about their reunion tour, which is benefiting HBCUs. How fitting is that? Look forward to that dialogue. They'll join us live in studio today in our third hour. But in this first hour today, let's talk politics with the national affairs correspondent for The Nation magazine, John Nichols. John Nichols, how are you today, sir?
I am good, sir. How are you?
If I complained, I'd be an ingrate. I am doing well and always delighted to be in dialogue with you. I was laughing walking to the studio saying, where am I going to start today with John Nichols? There is so much. There is so much news. Let me do this. I'm watching my clock. Let me just share with you and the audience where we want to go in this hour, at least I think partly where we want to go. We'll see where it takes us, and then we'll jump when we come forward. So we started this program on Monday, talking about Ronna McDaniel, the former RNC chair who got pushed out by Donald Trump because he wanted his daughter-in-law to be part of a triumvirate running the RNC. And so Ronna McDaniel gets pushed out of the RNC, and she lands at NBC News. And then all hell breaks loose because Chuck Todd and everybody else went in on their bosses at NBC News for this decision. And so we now know officially that NBC News has cut ties with Ronna McDaniel. That did not last long. We'll talk about that and get John's take on that, what it means and what it meant when they made this decision. Trump's social media company surged on its first day of trading on the NASDAQ, adding billions to his wealth. We all know the story this week. They dropped his bond from, $454 million to $175 million. Only a rich white guy could get his bond reduced by 68%. I digress on that for now. But Truth Social is now being publicly traded, his social media platform, and it did quite well, surging on the first day of trading. And there's a great deal more. I'm just getting started. John Nichols is our guest from The Nation magazine. Should be a great hour talking politics. You're listening, and I'm glad about it, to Tavis Smiley.
From Leimert Park with love, this is Tavis Smiley.
Hey y'all, Mona Swain here from Target's new YouTube series, My Cart is Full, where we feature Black founders and creators highlighting their connection to our community. As an actor and content creator, I love using my voice to inspire young Black women who look like me. When it comes to feeding my shine, seeing myself reflected in Black-owned and founded products at Target brings me joy. Together, we are Black Beyond Measure. Learn more at target.com/Black Beyond Measure.
Cookie wants to be a professional wrestler. I'm Cookie Serratos, and I'm 11 years old.
She also wants to win all the medals. That's why Cookie and her family make every day count, squeezing out her best with Go-Go Squeeze.
Okay, Cookie, let's break for a Go-Go Squeeze.
Go-Go Squeeze fruit-on-the-go pouches are a nutritious snack made from 100% fruit with no sugar added.
Call Cookie!
Because when you nurture your kids, you squeeze out the best in them. Squeeze out the best with Go-Go Squeeze. Not a low-calorie food. Products range from 11 to 13 grams of sugar and 60 to 70 calories per serving.
The thing no one tells you about periods is that your flow changes every day, and so should your tampon size. Tampax has 5 absorbencies to match your changing flow. If it hurts to remove, go down a size. If it leaks, go up a size. Only Tampax has a leak guard braid to help give you up to 100% leak and odor-free protection. All-day comfort and protection for under $5 a month. Based on average U.S. consumer usage at manufacturer's suggested price. However, pricing is at the sole discretion of the retailer. Excludes 8-count.
Hi, this is Scott Trout of Cordell & Cordell. If you're a dad who is facing divorce, there are extra layers of stress that may include stereotypes and assumptions. No two situations are the same. Our legal experience and dedication prepare us for whatever legal challenges we face together. You need a partner you can count on. For more than 30 years, Cordell & Cordell has represented men in divorce.
1455 Frazee Road, Suite 1050, San Diego, California, 92108. Online at CordellCordell.com.
Pizza's here. Oh, great. I'd love some, but I'm worried about my stomach issues.
If you're worried about having diarrhea, gas, bloating, stomach pain, or loose, oily stools, it may not just be stomach issues. It could be a condition called exocrine pancreatic insufficiency, or EPI. With EPI, the pancreas doesn't release enough enzymes to break down food, but EPI is manageable. Use the symptom checker on identifyepi.com and talk to your doctor. That's identifyepi.com. Sponsored by AbbVie.
Sometimes we lose, sometimes we win. Sometimes we try to fit it all in. Sometimes we don't know what's in store. Sometimes we find what we're looking for. Sometimes we're rolling easy and free. Sometimes 1 and 1 makes 3. So much to love along this ride. That's why Nationwide is on your side.
Nationwide Mutual Insurance Company and Affiliates, Columbus, Ohio.
Who do you trust to get at the truth? Tavis Smiley. That's who. The conversation continues right now.
It does indeed with John Nichols, National Affairs Correspondent for The Nation magazine. We'll talk trending political topics for the rest of this hour. So, John, as I was joking a moment ago, as you know, this business is either feast or famine. There's nothing to talk about or too much to talk about, and today's one of those days. There's a whole lot to talk about. We start with this Ronna McDaniel story. We began our program on Monday with this, and we played some clips of Chuck Todd pretty much going in on his bosses at NBC News, on their network no less, on Meet the Press, about this decision. I'll have some more to say about that in a moment. But before I get into the particulars of what we now know, which is that they have cut ties. As we say around here, grand opening, grand closing. That was quick. Ironically, I had Don Lemon as a guest on this program yesterday. Don Lemon was on in our third hour and talk about grand opening, grand closing. One interview with Elon Musk, and then they cut ties. Ronna McDaniel gets on Meet the Press one time, and now they cut ties with her. What did you make of this decision to hire her in the first place?
And it was a terrible decision for a whole bunch of reasons. Number one, she's not good at what she does. And so that was a big deal. Can you hear me, brother?
I can't. There's some background noise, but I can hear you. Yes, I'm just hearing some background noise as well.
Sorry, I apologize.
That's okay.
Anyways, it was a bad decision to hire her from the start. She's not good at what she does. I mean, this is the thing to understand. First, she's a liar, right? She has lied about the 2020 election. She has lied on behalf of Trump in all sorts of settings. I mean, that's not a secret. I'm not trying to be cruel to her. I'm not trying to say something that's unfair. It's just that's a reality. And you don't usually you don't start by putting somebody on TV who's a habitual liar. But beyond that, and because I know in politics and on TV, sometimes people lie. I hate to tell you, but that does happen. There's the other reality of this, which is she really isn't good at what she does. Think about this. She became chair in 2017. What happened since then? In the fall of 2017, Democrats had major advances in their position in the governorships and in the state houses across the state. 2028, Democrats retook the House of Representatives and had major advances in the state houses. 2020, Democrats retook the presidency and took the Senate after Georgia's special elections and continued to have advances in the state houses. 2022, which was supposed to be a red wave election, Democrats held the Senate, came close to holding on to the House despite some historic disadvantages, and had major advances in the governorship, even winning the state of Arizona. And so when you add all this together, her track record was one of being a really inept party chair, a party chair who didn't succeed in the basic job, which is getting your people elected. And so why would you hire such a person to be a quote-unquote political analyst? She's not good at it.
Yeah, their argument was, NBC News' argument was, and this was in their statement when they first announced on Friday that they were hiring her. She, of course, made her first appearance on Meet the Press again, as I said, on Sunday rather. But their argument was that they were going to have some insider access, that because she'd been there, she understood the workings, she understood the Trump campaign. And so that was their argument, that they thought they were going to get some inside information, and it was worth taking that risk, obviously, John.
It wasn't worth the risk. And we can go into a couple of reasons why that's the case. Number one, it wasn't worth the risk because she really wasn't up on the inside workings of the Trump campaign. They had excluded her and pushed her to the side. By the time she was forced out as chair, and remember, she was forced out to make way for Trump's daughter-in-law, as well as a very loyal Trump lieutenant from down in the Carolinas. By the time she was forced out, she wasn't in the center of the operation. All she had really done is bow to Donald Trump. She had, allowed him to basically use the party as he chose, including as a cash register to get money for his legal fees. And so the notion that she was going to bring you any insight on the Trump campaign was silly. What she was going to bring you, and she did on Meet the Press, and credit to Kristen Welker, who really did do her very best to try and get something useful out of Romney McDaniels. But what she did on Meet the Press was say, I didn't really believe some of what I said when I was with the Republican Party, right, which is, of course, suggesting habitual liar, but B, that she was still for Trump, right? And so you get somebody who is just another person coming on, another talking head saying, oh yeah, I'm a Republican, but I don't think you were getting any particular insight. And I think it was a classic fail by NBC because they didn't kind of look beneath the surface. They're saying, oh, we need a Republican. Oh, here's the former chair of the party. We'll just hire her. Well, no. If you want to get a Republican on, and somebody who's really going to make the case, there are Republicans who are good at it, right? Conservative Republicans, you and I know them, and they are multiracial, multi-ethnic. I mean, you can find people to do that job, but they picked, Mitt Romney's niece.
Yeah. I'm wondering what your view is, what your take is, and I think I raised this on Monday, on this notion that people on the left seem to have, that we have to be true to some notion of both sides. And we seem to bend over backwards too often, it seems to me, to present both sides of an issue. Even one side is true and one side is false. Not even really two different opinions. Just somebody's telling the truth and somebody's lying. And to your point, we still will bend over backwards to let the liar have their say. I do not see Fox News or Breitbart or any number of other institutions, outlets I can name that you know well, that make that same effort. But it's always on the left, the so-called liberal news, I don't buy that argument, that feels this penchant to represent both sides of an issue. Even one side is absolutely lying. What's your read on that, John?
Well, we even have a word for it now, right? Both siderism.
Yeah.
That our networks and particularly these cable talk shows, which, they exist to fill the time, right? And I do them, and you've done them. We all have. Hopefully, we bring a little more to them than some folks, but the reality is they got an hour. They're going to fill it with people, and they don't usually fill it with a lot of reporting. What they tend to fill it with is, people saying one opinion, people saying the other opinion. So it's valuable to have people who disagree, right? That gives a little energy to it at times. But where you cross the line is if you say, well, we're going to have people on to disagree, even if the disagreement is based in false premises, even if it's based on lies. And that's where it falls apart. Look, we live in a country that is a very, very big country, a lot of people, a lot of diversity of opinion. You can get people on who disagree on the issues who don't have to lie about it, right? Mm-hmm. And when we don't do that, we do tremendous damage to discourse. Because if you platform somebody who you know is going to lie about stuff, right? Who's going to perpetuate a big lie, like that the 2020 election was, rigged against Donald Trump or something like that. They're going to perpetuate a big lie. If you platform that person, you're giving the credibility of your network to that lie, mm-hmm. not to that person, mm-hmm. but to the lie itself. And that's what Chuck Todd was saying. And to give Chuck Todd credit. I've done Meet the Press, and I've been on with Chuck Todd. Yeah. And he you like him or dislike him, agree with him, disagree with him, but he has great regard for that show, right? And for the network, I think he thinks, this is something important, something special. And so what he was saying was, when he came on after McDaniel, look, this network's giving her our credibility, yeah, right? We're not getting anything from her. We're giving her something, and we're giving her $300,000 on top of that, and you don't know what to believe from her. And so this was a deeply, deeply problematic circumstance. Not the only one. And this is the only network that's done it. They all have made their mistakes. But this one kind of highlighted it. And I hope we'll pause, right? I hope we'll take a moment and just say, you know what? Maybe we should think a little more. Like, if you're going to have somebody on as an on-air personality, you're going to pay him to do it. Maybe have him on a few times for a trial run before you actually, sign the paperwork.
Well, even before a trial run, if you know they have lied perennially, then
right.
it's a trial run is
not even in the door.
There you go. A trial run isn't even necessary if you know that they lie about who won the election. They don't want to acknowledge what the facts are, and they've aided and abetted Donald Trump in all sorts of other obfuscations and untruths. Then while they're even on the short list to be considered, never mind a trial run is a whole other issue. To your point about Chuck Todd liking or loathing, I raised one of these issues I think earlier this week, but the other one I haven't raised as yet. And the first is simply this: it is not lost on me, and I suspect John Nichols not lost on you, that for all of the drama and for all of the commentary that we heard from Chuck Todd and other persons at NBC News about their disappointment with this decision to hire Ronna McDaniel, for all of that talk, this is the same network that made Donald Trump. This is their network.
That's right.
This is NBC.
That's right.
This is NBC. This is where he had his program. This is where he had his platform. This is the network that paid him a whole lot of money. And frankly, and to your point, I've been on Meet the Press more times than I can count, going back to the Tim Russert days even. But my point here, though, is that when Chuck was hosting Meet the Press, and he's not the only one, they bent over backwards to give Donald Trump as much access as he wanted during that campaign. I remember this well. They would let Donald Trump call in from his cell phone anywhere he was.
That's right.
That's right. They didn't make him go to a satellite studio. They didn't make him come in the studio. He could just call in on any given Sunday morning and just rant, because they were so anxious for those ratings. They were so anxious for that access to Donald Trump. He'd already been on the network. The network, again, had made him a star. And so it's kind of funny for me to watch Chuck and his colleagues go in on their bosses for making this decision when they all helped make Donald Trump Donald Trump.
Look, and I mean, and we can talk about NBC. We talk about all the networks. In 2016, I wrote a cover story for The Nation on, this is early on, in February, arguing that, look, if they had given Bernie Sanders
exactly
as a dissident in the Democratic Party that year the same amount of coverage as they gave Trump, who that year, like him or not at the start, was a dissident within the Republican Party.
Right.
If they had given Bernie Sanders the same level of coverage, he would have been the Democratic nominee.
Mm-hmm.
you know? And I would go a step further. I said, there's a pretty good chance he would have been president. And so, you know, what media does is create reality, right? I mean, it can't take nothing and make a reality of it. You got to have a little bit to work with. But if you've got something and you wall to wall, if you give it coverage all the time, it becomes a reality. And you know this well, because just think about on this show, if every single day you had the same guest on, right? And whatever topic came up, you and it's a glib person, somebody who can speak well, and you talk to him every day. What would happen after a couple of weeks? Everybody be talking about this person, right?
Yep.
Because you wouldn't have just platformed them for one day.
Yeah.
They're a regular now. They're a presence, and people would start to take that person seriously in different ways. Let's say if you last comparison I'll make here. Let's say if you're in LA, and you got somebody who always is talking about LA politics, LA City Council, LA mayoralty, stuff like that. Don't you think in a matter of time you could make that person somebody that gets talked about as a mayoral candidate? That's reality.
Yep, no, that's how it works. That's how it works. The other point about Chuck Todd, and we'll move off of this, there is other news today. There's always Trump news. There's Biden news. There's other stuff to cover. We'll get to that. But my last point on Chuck Todd is this. I also, and this may just be me, probably not. I'm sure others felt the same way for those who are really paying attention. We all know that Chuck Todd is the former host of Meet the Press. And Ms. Welker hosts the show now. And I ain't mad at her. I ain't mad at her decision. But I sort of felt like Chuck, while he was right on the issue, no question about that. Let me just be clear. He was right about his critique of his bosses. I also felt a little bit of a grinding, getting back at them for this decision.
Look.
You see where I'm going, do you not, John Nichols? This decision to take him off the desk. He gets pulled off that show. Ms. Welker gets the replacement, and he was very nice. He said, "Yeah, I think you did a great job. Your interview brought some things out." So Chuck played the role quite nicely, but you will never convince me that some of his going in on his bosses as hard as he did was about his grinding his own axe about being taken off the desk at Meet the Press. That's just me, though. That's just me. I
don't think it's just you. Look, I think, what's the bottom line reality of somebody who's a host on a national network television program, especially a Sunday program?
Yeah.
You got to have an ego.
Yeah.
You got to have an ego.
Sure.
Right?
Sure.
And so, here's Chuck Todd. But I think also, I agree with everything you're saying there, but let me add one other element here.
Sure.
I think that he did rather relish the elder statesman role.
Sure.
Right?
Oh, yeah.
That he was sort
Agreed.
of brought in to be
Agreed.
the voice of kind of journalistic clarity here. And I don't necessarily know that was needed. I think they could have had any number of other people come in to do it as well. And there were people lined up ready to do it, let me tell you. They could have brought Rachel Maddow on or Joy Reid. But they brought him in, and I guess in the end of the day, I'm going to give NBC credit for this, right? I'm going to give them credit because they were, I think it was a stupid hire, but they weren't so stupid that they tried to, spin it that it was a success.
No, I think you're right. And I'm not so sure they would have had success trying to spin that anyway. So the bottom line is that we started this program on Monday talking about the fact that Ronna McDaniel, former RNC chair, had been hired by NBC News. Her first appearance was on Meet the Press on Sunday. And here we are on Wednesday, and that gig is over and out. Ronna McDaniel done just that quickly at NBC. Maybe they'll learn from the huge mistake they made bringing her in the first place. I digress. More with the John Nichols of The Nation magazine when we come forward on Tavis Smiley.
Unapologetically progressive. Unapologetically black. You're tapped into Tavis Smiley.
Paid for by government.com. Did you know the United States Mint has issued a new Morgan silver dollar coin in proof condition for the first time? Not only that, they are also minted in 99.9% pure silver for the first time ever in history. Coin experts are calling this an amazing opportunity for anyone that knows the enduring popularity of Morgans. But you must hurry. Only 400,000 of these legal tender silver dollars were issued. These first ever Morgan silver dollars are brand new with stunning mirror-like finish, Minted by the iconic San Francisco Mint. Call now and you're guaranteed a new first ever 99.9% pure silver proof Morgan dollar. To learn more, call 1-800-973-9717. If you order now, you will receive a free coin collector bonus pack, a $25 value, free with every order. Call 1-800-973-9717 now to secure your new Morgan silver dollars before they are gone. That's 1-800-973-9717.
Thank you for joining us here on the Black Information Network. I'm Mike Moore. Now here's the latest. In Maryland, the collapse of the Francis Scott Key Bridge has affected both local and global supply chains. Port of Baltimore officials say no vessels will be able to travel in or out of the channel until further notice. The port's almost $81 billion worth of annual exports and imports will face delays and bottlenecks. Port officials say they're concerned that the longer the recovery efforts take, the more likely shipping companies will find alternatives to Baltimore. The first trailer is being released for the fourth film in the Bad Boys franchise. Bad Boys Ride or Die sees African-American actors Will Smith and Martin Lawrence reprise their roles as Mike Lowry and Marcus Burnett, two detectives working together in Miami, Florida. And that's the latest. I'm Mike Moore from your 24/7 news source, the Black Information Network and BINnews.com.
Why settle for ordinary when you can have extraordinary hair? Visit your local SoCal FS Cut and Color salon today and let their team of expert stylists pamper you with affordable luxury. Get a free shampoo with every cut. Book your appointment today at fantasticsands.com.
This is the KBLA Sports Minute with Ray Richardson.
The Lakers went 2 overtimes last night at Milwaukee without LeBron and still won. They beat Milwaukee by 4 to win their 4th straight. A monster game for Anthony Davis and Austin Reeves. AD had 34 points, 23 rebounds, and 4 block shots in 52 minutes. Reeves posted a triple-double with 29 points, 14 rebounds, and 10 assists. LeBron watched the entire game from the bench in street clothes. He's got a sore left ankle. The Lakers are 6-4 this season without LeBron. His status is uncertain for tonight's game in Memphis. The Clippers are back in action tonight in Philadelphia. Could be an interesting night for James Harden. It's his first time back in Philly since he forced the Sixers to trade him to the Clippers. The deal went down October 31st. Philly fans are not expected to be nice to him. No debates, no speculation, just the info you need. That's your KBLA Sports Minute. I'm Ray Richardson. More news, opinions, and conversation when we come forward on KBLA Talk 1580.
Environmental justice is racial justice.
Environmental justice is social justice.
This is KBLA Talk 1580. We've got a lot to talk about.
I'm Reverend Gerald, the life coach. Is someone you love struggling with addiction and mental illness? Is improving your family's health important? Want to leave a legacy that your family can grow? Are you ready to enhance your perception of life experiences? Then wake up weekends at 7 a.m. with Urban Family Focus and get the wisdom, opportunity, resources, and motivation to live your best life. Join the conversation on Urban Family Focus Saturday and Sunday at 7 a.m.
Unapologetically progressive. KBLA Talk 1580. We've got your black.
Psst. Hey, I have a secret. I use Secret Whole Body Deodorant because more than just my armpits stink.
Oh, can I use it where my bra rubs under my...
Oh, yeah.
And what about down there? You know, my...
Totally. 4 out of 5 gynecologists would recommend it. So I tried it, and now I get 72 hours of freshness from my pits to my...
Ooh, I love that it's a spray.
Me too. And it comes in sticks and creams too. Go get your Secret Whole Body Deodorant.
If you're looking for the most epic place on Earth, let's start at the base of a massive waterfall. Then trek through the thick jungle. Then climb to the peak of a snowy mountaintop. Then once you get there, keep going. Because with intelligent 4x4 and 7 drive modes and a Nissan Pathfinder, the search is the real adventure.
Available feature. Intelligent 4x4 cannot prevent collisions or provide enhanced traction in all conditions. Always monitor traffic and weather conditions.
There are many healthcare organizations serving our community. Not all are dedicated to community partnerships that educate, build trust, inspire hope, and improve outcomes. Providence has a robust community outreach program and has dedicated $50 million over the next 5 years to support organizations addressing health disparities in local communities of color. Examples of this commitment include the Biddy Mason Community Wellness Center on the First AME campus, providing medical screenings, mental health therapy, nutrition, and culturally sensitive holistic classes. The Black Mamas Glowing Peer Support Group that focuses on maternal mental health, birth planning, and social support. Providence is committed to building trusted partnerships with community organizations to better understand and dismantle structural, racial, and cultural barriers to better health. During Minority Health Month, Providence is sponsoring Health for a Better World. Informative conversations with Providence health professionals on Urban Family Focus every Saturday in April at 7 a.m. To find a Providence Health System facility near you, log on to providence.org.
Smart talk for curious people just like you. You're listening to Tavis Smiley.
Tavis Smiley and John Nichols, national affairs correspondent for The Nation magazine, talking about a plethora of trending topics today, politically, and we are in that season where these things are coming fast and furious. So every day, I suspect, there is stuff to navigate through regarding breaking news on the political front. And one of those stories, John Nichols, breaking today, is that yesterday, Trump's Truth Social started trading on the NASDAQ. And there have been so many conversations about his money, about his wealth or lack thereof. We can weave through some of that here in just a moment. But what did you make of the news that, again, on his first day of trading, his Truth Social social media platform did quite well, and on paper, certainly adding billions of dollars to his wealth?
Well, I think we have to take it in two kind of categories here. Number one, is it surprising that a tech startup or a social media platform that has an established following could go on the market and raise money, do well? Hardly. We see it happen all the time.
Yep.
It's relatively common.
Mm-hmm.
And you can like Trump or dislike Trump, but what you have to accept, what you have to recognize is this is a guy who has a following, right? And frankly, now increasingly major media covers Trump off Truth Social in the same way that it used to cover him off Twitter, which is to say, if he puts something on and it's provocative, it gets reported, right?
Yep.
And so it's not shocking that it raised the money. Now, let's then go to the second part of this equation, which is Trump needs the money. There's an awful lot of evidence that he needs a lot of money and he needs it fast. And this gets to many of the things he's involved in. If you look at the Republican Party, what have we had revealed? That when you give money to the Republican Party at the national level, a lot of it ends up funding Trump's legal bills.
That's right.
When you look at Truth Social, why is it on the market, and why are we suddenly, why is it a very big deal for him to raise money? Well, he needs money to pay for legal rulings, right, for decisions that have gone against him in the courts. And so what we start to recognize is that in many ways, Donald Trump is kind of always looking for a way to kind of monetize his politics, right? This is a guy who used to be a businessman, used to be a TV personality. Now his business is politics, right? And he's looking for kind of every avenue to monetize it, to run the numbers up and get himself more money, to deal with his problems, but frankly also to deal with his lifestyle. That's kind of a new phenomenon in American politics, right? I mean, it's not like certainly not like we haven't had people in politics who, got richer while they were in politics. Certainly not that we haven't had people in politics who even, illicitly got richer, right? These things happen a lot. We've lots of stories about it. Mm-hmm. But here's a guy who's doing something a little different, right? He's literally taking the infrastructure of his political life, the party he's involved in, the platform on which he communicates most of his political ideas, and, finding ways to stream that money out of the political process and into his own circumstance, into his own accounts. That's a pretty fascinating thing. And I don't think that most of our media, or frankly, most of our political class, has explored this as thoroughly as perhaps as they will.
Yep.
And again, I'm not standing here telling you he's doing something illegal, right? I'm telling you, he's come up with, as is the case with Donald Trump, he's come up with a new way to get money.
Yeah. No, it's fascinating to watch the way he is making these money moves, as we say. What was your read? We talked about it on the program, but I haven't heard John Nichols' take or the nation's take. What was your read on the significant reduction in this bond from $454 million to $175 million, which he has said publicly now he will post?
It's good to be rich.
Yeah. There you have it. There you have it. It is good to be rich, but it's also good to be in a situation where you are the kind of person, and let me unpack that in a second.
Oh yeah.
The kind of person that they would allow your bond to be reduced by 68%. It just so happened when that happened on, I guess it was Monday, whatever day that was. It just so happened that when that news broke, I had Ben Crump, the famed civil rights attorney, on the air, and I asked Ben. I said, Ben, let me just ask you. Have you ever had a black client who was fortunate enough to have his or her bond reduced by 68%? And Ben said, he said to me, Tavis, Smiley, I have trouble getting bond hearings from my clients, let alone getting these bonds reduced. So here again, whatever you say about Donald Trump, there's an indictment of him to be sure. The point I'm making, which I know you pick up on, is that there's also, with these indictments of Donald Trump, indictments of our system writ large. And so for me, I'm not going to sit in this chair any day and let people continue to just raise the issue of Donald Trump. And those issues are legitimate without also critiquing the system that he's operating inside of that is still allowing him in so many ways to get away with this stuff. And this was the system that allowed that sort of significant reduction in his bond. If they hadn't done that, we would have been looking at potentially a fire sale. This court also pulled back on the lower court's ruling that he and his sons could not run their business. I mean, there's a much deeper part of this ruling that we haven't talked about, that this federal appellate court, these 5 judges, saved him from, at least temporarily. That's the critique of the system, not just Donald Trump. Does that make sense?
It makes a lot of sense. And let me tell you something else. Remember, this is Donald Trump, who, some decades ago was calling for the system to throw a book at a group of people that turned out to be innocent.
The Central Park Five, yeah.
Yeah, and buying newspaper ads, right, and the whole bit. And so I think when we talk about Donald Trump and the system, yes, does he appear to be on the winning side of the system? Yes. But is he also someone who has shown very little respect for, there's no modesty there. There's no humbleness.
No question.
And he said, wow, I've got some real advantages here. Maybe I ought to think about, some of the problems with this system. He's more than willing to take advantage of it. But over the years, he has shown a tendency not to be willing to recognize that he does have that advantage. And that's, any politician, this is not to pick on Trump.
Yeah.
Talking about a lot of them. Any politician that doesn't recognize things like that is somebody I'm very skeptical of.
Yeah, I just want to put, again, that final point on it, that as these stories continue to develop in the weeks and months to come between now and November, let's just keep our eye on the ball, that in many ways the system that's already in place is allowing Donald Trump to escape, sometimes narrowly, but to continue to run the clock out. As we say, we're in March Madness now, so he's running out the clock in so many ways, and that is advantageous to him. When we come forward, the bad news, so Donald Trump's got some good news this week. They reduced that bond from $454 to $175 million. Clearly, that's good news, and John's right. It's good to be rich. The other good news is that his trading, his True Social platform trading on the NASDAQ did quite well, adding billions of dollars literally in one day to his net worth, certainly on paper. The bad news is that this trial regarding the sex scandal, Stormy Daniels, will go forward on April 15. They tried to get that case brought by Alvin Bragg delayed, and the judge says no more delays. This trial will start on April 15th. That's the good news if you're not a Trump fan. The bad news, if you are a Trump fan, if you're not a Trump fan, rather, the bad news is that it is the weakest of all these cases. So the case will go forward. But of all the cases out there, the experts tell you it is the weakest of these cases. We'll talk about that part. And Joe Biden. Big story today at the New York Times about Joe Biden on TikTok, what that means, what is happening or not. We'll talk about that with John Nichols of The Nation magazine when we come forward on Tavis Smiley.
This is getting good. Yeah, man. Tavis Smiley continues when we come forward.
What is dedication?
My biggest fear in the middle of my addiction was that my kids wouldn't have a father. And I started thinking, you know what? This isn't my story. I definitely had to become a better man to be a better father. It's important to me that my kids are empowered and truly believe that if they can think it, they can do it.
That's dedication. Visit fatherhood.gov to hear more. Brought to you by the U.S. Department of Health and Human Services and the Ad Council.
Joey from Vermont, a farmer trying to get through the winter. Adriana from South Carolina, a single mother living paycheck to paycheck. Liam from Ohio, an injured father struggling to provide for his family. Hi, I'm Shanola Hampton, and I support the Feeding America network of food banks because they help provide over 6 billion meals to people in need each year. Learn more at feedingamerica.org.
Tax Talk with Straight Talk.
You give and you give. This tax season, you get with Straight Talk Wireless. You get a reliable 5G network and unlimited data and a new Samsung Galaxy A15 for just $99. So you can give your janky phone to your kid. Yeah! Good talk.
Switch to Straight Talk for plans starting as low as $25 a line per month for 4 lines. Find us at Walmart and StraightTalk.com. For network management practices, visit StraightTalk.com. Device offer ends 4/14/24. In-store activation on single Silver Unlimited plan or higher required. Family plan discount with 4 lines all on the Silver Unlimited plan. Taxes and fees apply.
eBay Motors is here for the ride. Go ahead, feel your engine. Admire that perfectly installed exhaust. Your vehicle's moving along this freeway like it was made from fresh installs and a whole lot of love. With eBay Motors, you get over 122 million parts to keep it running. And with eBay Guaranteed Fit, they'll be the perfect fit every time. Plus, at these prices, well, we're burning rubber, not cash. Keep your ride or die alive at ebaymotors.com. Eligible items only. Exclusions apply.
We must understand the politics of our community, and we must know what politics is supposed to produce.
This election year, KBLA Talk 1580 is the place for politics. Unapologetically progressive politics. And we've got 2 of the best and brightest to help you cut through all the noise. Weekdays at 1 p.m., it's A More Perfect Union with Dr. Nichols Corte. And at 4 p.m., it's Areva Martin in Real Time. He's the university professor and distinguished member of the White House Correspondents Association. She's a best-selling author and Harvard-trained civil rights lawyer. And they are both here every day to help guide you through all the this year, because you know it's going to get deep. Get your politics on weekday afternoons at 1 p.m. and 4 p.m. with A More Perfect Union, hosted by Dr. Nichols Corte and Areva Martin in Real Time, only on KBLA Talk 1580. We've got your flag. Let's get back to more of Tavis Smiley right now.
So the bad news again, John Nichols, for Donald Trump this week, while his True Social is doing well at the NASDAQ and that bond got reduced, the bad news is that this April 15th trial that Alvin Bragg has brought forward regarding Stormy Daniels and his paying her money to be quiet, et cetera, all the stuff we know with Mr. Cohen's involvement, that trial will move forward. That's the good news. The bad news is that it's the weakest of all of these cases. How are you reading this development?
Well, I mean, isn't it always the case that we've got somebody who's in a lot of trouble, or seems to be in a lot of trouble, lots of indictments, lots of scandals all over the place, or lots of things that people think ought to be prosecuted, and it ends up being the smallest one, right? Or the weakest case, or the most unexpected case, right? I am not in the camp that will tell you that that we should dismiss any of these cases, right? I mean, people have come to the bench looking for justice, right? And judges and juries are going to sort this out. And it's not beyond the realm of possibility that this Stormy Daniels case, which obviously is going to get a good deal of public attention, might do Trump a great deal of damage, right? Might do him damage ultimately if a decision goes against him, but also just the publicity from it. And this is one thing to keep conscious of, Tavis. And I think it's look, we've not had a phenomenon like this at the presidential level ever, where we've got a former president of the United States running for a new term who is in so much legal trouble, right, has so many legal battles.
Mm-hmm.
We don't know exactly how this plays out, but we got a little bit of an indication from the primaries. In the primaries, when Nikki Haley was running against Trump, and by the way, she's still getting a surprising number of votes in a lot of these primaries, even though it's kind of a ghost candidacy. When she was running against him, they did exit polls. And they said in the exit polls, well, if Trump gets convicted on any of these charges, would he be unfit to be president? And the weird thing about it was the numbers kind of shot up.
They shifted, exactly.
Yeah. And so don't underestimate that there's a portion of the American electorate that really does say, okay, give him his chance, let him go to trial, right? And not going to convict him before he's convicted. But if he is convicted, that's a big deal, right? That counts for something, even if it's on one of these so-called lesser charges or weaker cases or however you want to describe it. And I don't want to get in the camp of dismissing something as lesser or weaker. I think that's just how media does it. But my sense is that all of these cases are damaging to Donald Trump.
Yeah.
And again, those exit polls from the primary, they were very, very telling. Those Nikki Haley voters, a lot of them weren't voting for Nikki Haley. They were voting against Trump.
Yeah.
And so that becomes a real issue, I think.
No, your analysis, as usual, is spot on, and it's worth underscoring what John Nichols just said. Every poll, survey, and study that suggests that Donald Trump is leading Joe Biden, the numbers in those surveys shift dramatically. If you ask those same persons being polled, do they still feel that way if he's convicted of a crime between now and November? And the numbers shift. So this conviction, or any conviction, matters. And I take John's point that sometimes it is the smallest case, the one that the legal experts tell you is the weakest case, that can end up doing the most damage. First of all, you just want to get a conviction on the books. It's like getting some points on the scoreboard, right? Those who don't want to see Trump in office will take any conviction on anything, jaywalking. It doesn't matter. So to the extent that Alvin Bragg can pull off a conviction here, that would be significant. I think John's right about that. And I'm laughing thinking about the gangster Al Capone. They went after Al Capone for years, for everything. He was a gangster of the highest order, and they could not get him until they got him on tax evasion. They couldn't get him on killing. They couldn't get him on all the things they were after him for. They could not nail Al Capone. They got him on tax evasion. So sometimes it's the weakest case that can get you across the finish line. I digress. Our remaining moments with John Nichols when we come forward on Tavis Smiley.
More of Tavis Smiley when we come forward.
If you're like me, 60 and retired, making ends meet, especially here at the supermarket and drugstore, is tough. I'm so blessed to have found benefitscheckup.org. It's a free and confidential website from the National Council on Aging that connected me to $1,200 a year in programs that help pay for food, medicine, utilities, and more. Maybe it can help you. benefitscheckup.org.
My daughter was diagnosed with a rare malignant rhabdoid tumor on the spine. They sent her straight to St. Jude. My hope was gone. But when you get there, everyone's like, hey, we're not going to give up. And when you see other people not giving up on your child, that makes all the difference in the world. When I found out I didn't have to pay, I was just grateful. They saved my baby's life.
Finding cures, saving children. Learn more at stjude.org.
Watch out! You got me!
The galaxy is safe once again.
In the pretend universe, kids play with pretend guns. In the real world, it's up to us to make sure they don't get their hands on a real gun. If you have a gun in the house, keep it locked, unloaded, and stored separately from ammunition. Safe gun storage saves lives. Learn how to make your home safer at endfamilyfire.org. That's endfamilyfire.org. Brought to you by End Family Fire, Brady, and the Ad Council.
KBLA Talk 1580. We've got a lot to talk about.
KBLA Talk 1580 believes in community empowerment. LA's 99 neighborhood councils form the grassroots level of the Los Angeles city government. The system was created to connect LA's diverse communities to City Hall. While neighborhood council board members are volunteers, they are also public officials elected to office by the members of their community. Neighborhood councils advocate on issues like homelessness, housing, land use, emergency preparedness, public safety, parks, transportation, and sustainability. They also provide local expertise on the delivery of city services to their various communities. Neighborhood councils are open to participation by anyone who is a part of the fabric of daily life in said community. This includes those who live, work, or own property or a business. If you are interested in stepping up to join your local neighborhood council, visit www.empowerla.org. That's empowerla.org. It's time to think globally, but act locally. This is a community call to action from KBLA Talk 1580.
You're gonna feel a puff of air.
Jong's Optometry has set their sights on staffing up.
Try the next line. Hey, Kim, can you tell our 2 o'clock we're running 15 behind? Sorry, we're a bit backed up today.
He needs an optometric technician to keep an eye on it all.
Where are the dilation drops?
Indeed can help him hire great people fast.
I need Indeed.
Indeed you do. You can schedule and conduct virtual interviews all from your employer dashboard. Visit Indeed.com/credit and get $75 towards your first sponsored job. Terms and conditions apply.
He's rooting for everybody black. Everybody black. More of Tavis Smiley coming your way right now.
More of the nation's John Nichols coming your way right now. I got about 3.5 minutes. I want to cover 2 or 3 things right quick, John. Let me do this first. One of our listeners, this person could be a good talk show host. It's a great question. Tavis, here's my question for John. If the Democrats do not offer voters a viable alternative candidate, not Biden, does a conviction actually matter?
It may. Look, I understand exactly where that caller is coming from, and there's an awful lot of folks in Democratic circles and beyond who see Biden as a weak candidate for a variety of reasons, and would like to see somebody stronger in whatever their measure is, right? But the reality is that Biden's going to almost certainly be the nominee at this point. I don't see that not happening. And the reality is that Trump is almost certainly going to be the Republican nominee. So you got 2 nominees, both of whom bring vulnerabilities to this process. It's going to be one of those core realities in politics. You got to make a choice.
Yeah.
And what you're going to see when people have to make that choice is you're going to see, some of those Republican voters that didn't like Trump, coming back to him.
Yep.
Even some of those Haley voters. You're going to see a number of those Democrats who've been frustrated with him, often legitimately on issues like Gaza, and a host of other concerns, coming back to him. It's just always a question of how many, right?
Yeah.
How well do you mobilize your base? And some of that falls on Biden. I think Biden has a huge responsibility, A, to spend more time campaigning, right, to physically get out there, but B, to develop a message that actually connects with people.
Well,
and I'm not sure they've got that yet.
No, I think you're right about that latter part. But that is the question, and we'll be wrestling with that between now and November. Does a conviction actually matter? And we will find out if they get a conviction. We'll be talking about it for certain. If there's a conviction, and we'll be following these numbers to see if the conviction actually made a difference. I take the listener's point that a conviction may not make a difference ultimately if, again, Biden is as weak a candidate as people think he is. We shall see. I got 60 seconds to go. Biden is on TikTok. A big story in the New York Times today. I think it's fascinating reading. I recommend people kind of check it out about the impact that his being on TikTok may or may not have when it comes to young voters. You mentioned Gaza. They certainly are disappointed with him on that issue. I don't know that there is a strong play that Joe Biden can make to young voters. Do you?
He could try. And, look, we've seen – I covered Bernie Sanders when he ran for president, and I know the senator pretty well, as do you. And I can tell you that a lot of people didn't expect that Bernie Sanders was going to connect with young voters, and he did massively. I'm not saying that Biden can do the same thing. But I think it's smart for him to be on TikTok and at least give it a try. See what he can pull off.
In 30 seconds here, not fair, but in 30 seconds, any thoughts about this recent Julian Assange news? I know the nation's been covering this for years, but this court has now said they will not turn him over to the U.S. unless we give them more assurances. Your thoughts right quick?
I think it's a good idea not to turn him over. I think the U.S. should drop the charges. Julian Assange, maybe somebody you like or somebody you don't like. That's not what this is about. This is a real threat to journalism. It's a threat to somebody who's going out, getting a story the way that journalists often do, and which can be a little messy at times, but it speaks truth to power. This Assange case should not go forward. The U.S. should drop the charges.
More about this Assange case in the days ahead. It is a fascinating story. The U.S. wants to get their hands on Assange so bad, but the UK will not turn him over without more assurances about his safety and other issues, not giving him the death penalty if he's found guilty, et cetera, et cetera. More about that in the days ahead, but I want to get John's take on that right quick. John, all the best to you. I'll talk to you soon, my friend. Take care of yourself.
It is a pure pleasure to be with you, my friend. Keep strong, do good. I know you will.
Likewise, my friend. All the best to you. More of Tavis Smiley when we come forward.
KBLA 1580 Santa Monica.
Thank you for joining us here on the Black Information Network. I'm Mike Moore. Now here's the latest. In Maryland, the collapse of the Francis Scott Key Bridge has affected both local and global supply chains. Shipping companies will find alternatives to